Hello, beautiful people. We are here with Abby Dagnese, wonderful medium, and my one of my son's voices, a major one. And hi, Eric. I love you.
Well, he's got his own voice. He says that's for fuck sure.
Oh, that's for fuck sure. That is true. And y'all, we will give you. You will see on the screen Abby's information, so you can get in touch with her, which you will want to. She's awesome. Book a session with her, really, before she gets out 2 years. Anyway. So yeah, we're going to talk about, some people, especially lately, I think, maybe since COVID, have been stuck. And, why is that? And what's going on? I mean, sometimes it's just people need to like reflect and take some time and stop their forward movement. But other times there are reasons for it. Like because of COVID, we sort of stopped the habit of getting together with our friends, having Robert Burt come over for Friday night dinner. So anyway, we unstuck that by, having a little party, family party.
He was
By
always
the way,
one of my favorites.
yeah. So tell
I
me,
can't
Eric,
wait to meet him someday.
yes, what is it, Eric, that some people are stuck now, or maybe it's not something new. I don't know.
He's leaning into the camera. He's going, mama.
Uh-oh, in
He
trouble
says,
already. Jesus.
Mama met who's first things first. He goes, "Mm."
Oh, I love you. I already said I love you, I think. Anyway, well, proof. This is being recorded, so I'll know. Go ahead, Eric.
So that was my dog. Sorry.
Okay, you guys, the aquarium people are going to come here in about 25 minutes. There's going to be all sorts of barking, so I'm going to have to put it on mute at that time. So
Yeah.
that work.
And actually my dog's barking too, so we
That's it.
might have to get someone. All right. So anyways, Erik says, I love this subject. He says, so many of you have this problem, but you don't even know it. He says, you really
Mm,
don't even know it. He says,
really?
because you ask all these, and he's not trying to say ridiculous questions, as in your questions are ridiculous. It's just his Erik way of like communicating. But
Yeah.
he asks these ridiculous questions as if you don't already know the answer. He says it's the wrong kinds of questions, really. He says it's about a situation that's been perpetrated by you. He says, yes, your free will and your freedom of choice. He says, in my expert opinion, he's like Professor Erik over here. He,
Of course.
he's saying, really what it's about is the movement of change and how that can occur and what you're able to do to process your achievements to be able to locate what your goals actually are, like really are, he says. Not the external, but the internal
Is
goals.
somebody talking?
No, that's my dog.
Oh, it sounds like a human voice, but okay, go ahead.
She's a German Shepherd Husky.
Oh, oh, they're talking. All right, go ahead.
So and so he's saying that you have freedom of choice, you have freedom of free will. And then there's purposeful choice and purposeful free will that are very much karmatic equations that come into play. He says we all have our own matrix and our systems built up for learning purposes and learning accuracy and learning things accurately.
Okay.
He's saying, so what happens is, he says, your energetic source, your energetic being, okay? He says, what happens is the energy gets stuck. It's that simple. It gets stuck in your own thought processes, in your own thought patterns, which is what creates your matrix. He says, because
Right.
remember, your thoughts are your reality. So it's kind of like the geometric pattern he's showing
Like
me.
sacred geometry?
Yeah, like sacred geometry.
Yeah,
It's
like
he's
the 369 manifestation. I was just reading about that because one day I'd like to broach that
yeah.
subject.
So we almost did. And he's kind of actually bringing that into play about the fact that you have to fulfill your purpose and your destiny in this situation and really learn that what you think are the more ethical choices are not always just because patterns, it's free will patterns.
Hmm.
So it's not that you necessarily have to be unstuck. It's not necessarily about moving the unstuck because you have to. He's saying it's more the free will and free choice of your pattern, of your energetic equation to get it unstuck.
Oh,
I hope that made sense. I don't
yeah.
really know. So he's saying that I am saying, he says, you have free will to move things, to get out of situations, to become unstuck. And really what it is your thought process. He says, that's to dumb it down. That's the dumbed down equation.
Yeah.
He says, that's the Erik terms of the equation of everything I just said. He says that it's actually, this is interesting, and you'll find this interesting, Lisa. He's saying it's a mathematical equation.
Yeah.
That actually it can be converted, and like the process of becoming unstuck energy is a mathematical equation. I wish I could like understand it. It's like
No,
Z
I
and like,
believe it. Like Tesla said, if we truly understood the power of the sequence 369, we would have for manifestation, we would have the keys to the universe. He said it's just so magical.
you look gorgeous by the way today.
Oh, thank you. You did too.
I just had to tell you that. Sorry.
Oh, thanks.
So the unstuckness of the equation is really, he says, it's a pattern of movement in your own motivational sequence of when things are supposed to be with timing. Sometimes, believe it or not, you're not supposed to be unstuck because this is a karmatic equation from past lives that are brought into this lives or in this life lesson that were preordained and pre-planned out with the ascended masters, with your guides, with your loved ones. So sometimes you're supposed to be stuck to feel the feeling of stuck, to think through the situation adequately, how it's supposed to be processed properly. Sometimes that is a life lesson. So
Yeah.
many of you, he says, ask you, Elisa, what is the purpose of my life? What is my life lesson? What am I doing here? He says sometimes it can be just as simple as dumbing it down to that mathematical equation of the stuckness and becoming and creating an unstuck plan, unstuck matrix process. You can evolve it's kind of almost like a DNA strands. It's doing something with your matrix and your body and your energetic being a lot like a DNA strand, which you then process over and bring over to the next life.
Mm.
Thank God.
Wow.
Because
Yeah,
I've had a lot of unstuck and I don't want to be unstuck in certain things the next life.
I know.
He says that thoughts are your illusion, but that can be a really positive, great thing. That can be your reality because your thought processes are everything. He
Mhm.
says the I ams, the owns, the self-talk, the affirmations.
Yeah.
Making fun of me over here because I've been listening to manifestation mantras as I fall asleep at night to just try
Oh,
and reprogram
good.
my own
Yeah.
motor neurons in my brain to be able to be unstuck myself in certain thought processes and patterns I have that have just been instilled in me. He says they've been instilled in me and everybody and a lot of other people through childhood trauma issues, through narcissistic behavior or gaslighting abuse, the use of toxins. He says toxins in the air. He says those all affect your emotional well-being and your state of mind, which then connect to how you're reacting to things. He says if you're not eating properly, if you're not moving enough, if you're not getting exercise,
Yeah.
saying, those things, he says, all come together with the stuckness. He says if you want to, I'm gonna just like let my dog out of the room real quick.
It's not bothering us.
Okay, is it all right? All right. If it's
It's
too loud,
fine. It's fine. It's barely anything. But
Gypsy's
he might just howl outside the door, even worse. You never know.
she might. She really might. I even gave her some calming treats.
All right. Well, we're good.
Okay. So he's saying that he says that being stuck really is a matter of choice which you are in control of, but then there also is that pattern and that sequence where you're supposed to feel that stuckness. He says, and that's a tricky one. It's not really up so much for your judgment to decide whether or not it's okay to be stuck. It's more the recognition. Gypsy, come. He says more it's the recognition that you are stuck, because some people just get stuck. Okay, so we're going to bring love patterns into place here.
Oh, okay,
Let's talk
good.
about relationships.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how many of you get stuck in this evolving cycle of the same kind of relationships, and then you find
Yes.
yourself stuck over and over again. He says the way to reprogram and reprocess this, he says, if, and this is actually something I repeated just yesterday to somebody, like a friend of mine,
Mhm.
and he's saying it right now. So maybe it was him channeling me bad and realized,
Oh,
because
cool.
I'm not that smart, but he's like,
Oh,
if you do what you've always done, you're going to get where you've always been. So to do something to change a relationship process with a woman or with a man or even with a parent or with a sibling or with a child, you have to reprogram your brain to do the uncomfortable, to do the fearful. He says, which is that in turn makes you unstuckness. He's turning the unstuckness like it's an adjective.
yeah, I know.
He says,
Well,
but
it is
really,
now.
it is
If I
now.
declare it, and
He
that's
says,
it.
he says it's the Erik dictionary
There we
of
go.
Erik dictionary of resourcefulness. He says, your thoughts query your intentions. I
Oh,
wonder what he means by that.
interesting.
Okay. So
That's pretty deep, actually. Your thoughts query your intentions. Okay.
I don't know how you'd use that in a sentence. I'm not going to lie to you. So I'm going to have to look that up later.
Me
Here we
too.
go again. He's saying though that really he says that your motivation is always going to be, it's never going to be a different motivation. The motivation is always going to be for your eternal happiness and
Yeah.
sanity and peace.
Yeah.
That's your motivation
Yeah.
for any unstuckness in any event, any situation. And it's what he always says to me. The only thing you're in complete control of is your reaction to things. And again, he's saying to me what I do say to my clients when he's channeling, which is that, it's not easy. It's not easy to just go, I'm going to be a different pattern. I'm going to just do, he says, a fucking different lifestyle and a fucking different pattern from how I've always done it and think that this is going to feel good. He
Yeah.
says, it's actually the opposite. You feel like shit. He says it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel right. It
Yeah.
feels out of your element because it is out of your element. Think about your body as a matrix. It's out of that element. It's out of that equation. But what you're redeveloping is a new element and a new equation. And that's when you're taking steps forward. He says it's not just thought. He says it's not just thought, it's creating energetic patterns, energetic wavelengths of regrowing and redeveloping your, not just your brain waves and your brain function and putting that frequency out there. It's also, he's saying, in your heart space, redeveloping the electromagnetic pulses of your heart and how that develops that area because of the
Ooh,
brain heart interaction with
yeah.
things.
Right.
So he says, and if you think about it, he says, it's all free will. You don't have to. You can stay stuck. You can
Yeah.
stay stuck in your thinking. You can stay stuck in your mantras. You can stay stuck in your feelings. He says, but he says, just for a second, he's challenging. He says, imagine if your matter of factness about something changes to a matter about my happiness, a
Ooh,
matter about my peacefulness, a matter about my inspirationness, a matter about my freedomness. He says so many people are money driven, but what they're unfocused on is what money actually is it's a tangible object, whereas more of the tangible object that we're discussing here is freedom, because that's what brings money too. And he says he's
a
discussed
lot of
this.
people think that money brings freedom, and in many ways it does, financial freedom and all that.
He
But
says, so if you're stuck,
manifest
if
freedom, and money will come. Is that what you're
you're,
saying?
yes, if you're
Okay.
stuck, yeah, he says, ma, exactly that's exactly what it is. He goes, fuck yeah. He says, Absolutely. So if you focus on freedom, if you pray for freedom, abundance and freedom, what you're doing is you're manifesting and you're creating that abundance of tangible money. So if you're stuck in poverty, if you're stuck in my car is always breaking down, I can never afford to fix it, think about something else that you can that's not tangible. You're thinking of dense things, people, that don't
Mm,
actually exist. Your reality
yeah.
doesn't actually exist on your plane of thinking like you think it does. You're just a puppet. And when your soul comes out of your body, he says, you look at that damn thing and you think, fuck, I definitely don't want to get back in it because this is so much better than that. I'm not going to say that, Eric. Um,
Oh, okay. Hey, I want to ask one thing. If I personally were to do the 369 manifestation, what would I, and maybe this is for others too, write three times in the morning, six
you're
times at
manifesting power.
midday,
You're
nine
manifesting
times. Yeah,
power,
'cause
he says.
power, not freedom.
This is another mantra choice.
Okay.
So look at
I
freedom.
wanted to get rid of all my physical and mental ailments, like, my, why do I have to take Cymbalta all the time? I mean, things like that. If I want to tackle as many things as possible, what would I manifest or
Power,
write down?
but not in an egotistical. There's no
I
ego
know.
in this word power that we're using today. We're talking about the power and the abundance of freedom, the power and the abundance of the willingness that you're going to create and give to yourself as a gift to open your own eyes to your self-esteem.
So
To
I have the power to be ultimately to have ultimate freedom. But what would a mantra be? What would you write?
I am abundantly powerful.
I am abundantly powerful. Okay.
He
Would that
says
be the best mantra for everyone, or would everybody write their own 369 journal thing?
He says, well, some people got it down. Some people just have it naturally down. He's considering the fact though that having it down in an egotistical sense, being powerful
Yeah, I
in
know
what
that's not me.
you know what? I'm gonna give a
How about
plug here.
self-empowered?
I'm gonna give a plug here to Kim Babcock. She has a
Yeah.
really great talk about that really blew my mind and opened my eyes. And I watched it and I was like, oh, that's really great. And what it is it's about presence power
Hmm.
and what presence power is. So I encourage everybody to take a look at that because that's what Eric's really referring to is the now and what you do have control of and what you can continue to keep control of. And that is absolutely your power of state of mind of being in the now and how that can affect, how that affects in positive vibrations and ways. With the you're calling it's called 369.
Yeah.
He's saying yeah, he says, of course, it's a great way and mechanism to manifest the abundance of anything you're looking for. It doesn't have to just be money. He
Oh
says
no.
it could be health.
Yeah.
It could be being in a reputable position at work that you're proud of. It can be having a healthy marriage, be
Yeah.
welcoming in a newfound relationship, even if it's for a baby, even if it's because you want to have a baby. He says that the 369, it's really about repeating things. Like the more you repeat it, the more you cycle through it, the more you hear it, the more you say it, the more that affirmation comes to be because you're going to believe it.
Do
It's
you
kind
have
of
to
like,
write it down, or can you just say it? Oh, go ahead.
oh, he was just making fun of me because I can't spell because I'm 41 years old.
Yeah.
Because I repetitively spell
Yeah.
because wrong all the time.
Yeah.
So he's like, now that's your pattern. Is misspelling. This is the shit I deal with. Just so you know.
I know. So wait, is it important to write it down in a journal, or can you just vocalize?
No. Thought becomes you take thought, you have to put it into something. You have to move it. This is
Oh, okay.
This is becoming the unstuckness. He says,
Oh,
sure, you can say something 500 times. He says, but you have to move it. You have to create something from it because you're in your world. You're not just in our world. You're in your world too. And in your world,
yeah.
you need physical matter.
3D. Right. So writing in a journal would
So
be,
writing in a journal, what I did for my New Year's resolution this year was work on my confidence. We
yeah.
both know I need that, you know? So, and self-value. And so I wrote like my own mantra, right? And I put it in under notes in my phone, you know, and every once in a while I just read through it. I mean, it can be as simple as that. It doesn't mean you have to go out and, I mean, sure, get a fancy unicorn journal, Eric says, if that's what, if that's what you really like. He
Well, if
says, I
you
know
want to avoid,
I would love unicorn journals.
yeah, if you want to avoid the whole ego power thing, what about I am self-empowered? Not
He
I
says,
want to be self-empowered because then you're always going to be wanting that, not getting it.
there's ego in that because
I have an abundance of self-empowerment and freedom. I think that's
here's the other end of
awesome.
this. Here's the other end of this that you have to watch out for with the ego part of it. When you're
Okay.
saying that, you have to take self as in because you're one of the whole.
Oh
So
yeah.
it affects
Oh,
other people. So
yeah.
if you, as you're saying that mantra, it's perfectly fine to say that, but you need to give it the feeling
Of the collective.
you're affecting the collective.
Okay.
Do you get
Makes
it?
sense. Yes.
It makes
Right.
sense though.
Because that's the sacred geometry. Everyone's connected through this beautiful
Yeah,
grid, sacred
this is good.
geometry. And if you just
Yeah.
isolate it to self, then it's not going to be as powerful manifestation wise,
He's
right?
a really great analogy right now about think about a flower, like think about it. He's showing me this tulip, and you can
Okay.
see all the veins in the tulip.
Mhm.
Okay. He's showing me a bee coming down and pollinating the flower, and then it's going to the next flower. And so part of
Oh
that
yeah.
flower, the next flower, which is in the next flower, which is in the next flower. So that's very much how our sacred geometry works. We all have our own intricate
Or you
vein.
can concentrate on my varicose veins too.
I thought
Sacred
you were showing
geometry at its best. I'm kidding.
Eric goes, Mama, please don't. People don't want to see your hairy legs.
They're not. They're smooth as silk.
He says, well, I'm not going to be touching. He says, I'm just kidding. He's bending in front of you, rubbing your legs. He's saying silky smooth.
All right.
Don't
Come
be touching my
on.
legs.
Come on with your bad self.
Okay, he goes, you're right. I got off track. He's like pacing, actually, totally
Oh
pacing. And
God,
his
yeah.
hair today is like longer than it usually is when I
Oh,
see
okay.
him. And it's curlier, like more curlier. So his hair's just kind of tick, 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 like kind of,
Oh,
and he's pacing. He's like, okay, to create movement, you have to create new thought pattern. We already went over that. He
right.
says, and the affirmation has to exist, and you have to move it from mind to matter. So moving it out of your mouth onto find some kind of physical source of paper or some kind of relative movement.
Okay.
Relative movement. Then there's more to it. Then to be continuing the unstuckness, you have to feel like it's already happening. This is very much a manifestation,
Yes.
very much as a
Use all
manifestation.
your senses.
He says that is becoming unstuck. Already feel like you are sublime. He says
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite groups, by the way.
That's
Sublime.
one of his too.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, he loves Sublime.
I love Sublime. I actually went and saw Badfish actually like over the summer. I love Badfish.
Oh
Anyway,
wow. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
you don't know. You're just saying. Just kidding.
No, Smash. Wait, Smashing
Badfish.
Pumpkins. I'm
They're
thinking
a
of.
tribute band for
Okay,
Sublime.
yeah.
Anyway,
Showing my age.
Eric says yes, you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so but that's actually a lot of like how sacred geometry works and grows too, and manifests and creates and regenerates itself is through the matter of movement and matter as in physical matter of movement. So you can create new energetic frequencies and patterns. We've already discussed this. He says, how do you think you do your whole Atlantic scalar, which you already know all about the science and the physics behind that.
Yeah.
But that's also how you create your unstuckness. It's your willingness. He says your desire to create. And that, he says, that people is where the movie magic is. He says, creating, you have to have intentions, and the desires have to come from love. It has to come
Yes.
from love. It has to come from interest. It has to
Not
come
ego, but love.
not
Yes.
ego and not interest financially. It has
Mm-mm.
to come from a place within you that's like, he says, kind of archaic, kind of like Picasso. He's the one that cut off his ear, right? Like it has
Okay.
to come from a
No,
place
that
of,
was Van Gogh.
okay. See, clearly I didn't take many art classes.
Neither did I. All right, go ahead.
He says, but precisely though, it comes from a place from no ego. He
Yeah.
says it comes from a place of fucking just mad intelligence of what that you know yourself and
Yeah.
you know what you like. And he says it's ridiculous to for anybody. By the way, he never tries to put people down. He just talks the way he does.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. He
he's
never does that. He loves.
yeah, he's very loving. He
Yeah.
just says things certain ways sometimes. So he's like, it's ridiculous when all of these people that say, like, I don't know myself. You know. He says, stick something in your mouth, like a piece of chocolate. Do you like it? No. Do you like white chocolate instead?
Ew.
Yes. Or do you prefer, he says, like a piece of cheesecake? He said, did he like cheesecake? Because he's saying he likes cheesecake.
Yeah, I
So
do.
so he's saying, if you think, he says there are things you do know about yourself,
Yeah.
and that's okay. He says you don't have to have it all figured out to create your plan. He says all you have to do is have the desire to have it, to want it to be different, and to have courage, and to have courage to be brave, to have courage to be brave enough to do the hard stuff, to feel the fear and do it in fear, do it anyway, to be able to create the new process. You want to get out of the same patterns in the relationship because you're, 41 and unmarried ever. He says then you have to do the dirty work. You have to do the tough stuff. You have to be not just honest with yourself, but you have to put that into motion, and you have to do the different things that you've always done to get a different outcome.
What do you mean? Can you give me a specific example?
Yep. That was him. Yep. He says, all right, getting back to the relationship stuff, because he always gets lots of relationship questions, or even lots of
Oh, yeah.
questions about choosing about where to move to or buying a home.
Mm.
He says relationship stuff. He says a lot of people have a hard time with honesty, like with their partner, about how what they've done. He says it's difficult because even nowadays versus when Erik was on this earthly plane,
Yeah.
there's a lot more openings there for communication with social media, which is, he says, the destructor of relationships these days, because it's easy to just talk to random people.
Yeah.
It's really hard and difficult to say to somebody that you're developing things with and care about, that you're also talking to other people, or you've started a relationship and you really like the person, you don't know for sure where it's going, but then yet you're like opening yourself up and communicating and talking and allowing yourself. He says those kinds of communication patterns, he says they're lost. It's lost a lot of truth. Like, it's almost like it's an accepted way. You're forgetting how it is, though. He's like, you meet somebody, you start falling in love, like, be honest. Let them know, like, just where you're at, where your mind frame is, where your thought patterns are at. It's really uncomfortable to say to somebody you really care about who hasn't committed to you yet, that,
Yeah.
hey, it hurts me that you haven't committed. So I did this to make my ego feel better. And this is what happens. He says that doesn't happen regularly. And that's what's uncomfortable. And that's something that is so unprecedentedly done. He
Yeah.
says, so this is just a sheer example, of how you can overcome and change, getting into a new pattern and a new process of how you want this new relationship to go with this person. Maybe it still won't work out, but
Yeah.
you're evolving.
Changing a pattern. You're
You're
changing a
changing
pattern.
a pattern with the house hunting. Instead of looking at the circumstantial situation of the marketplace, people are backing out of this house, because the interest rates are so high and they really can't afford it and they figured it out,
Yeah.
or just whatever's. He says, how much of that are you in control of? How
Yeah.
much of it can you do? What can you really do about it? He says, sometimes really it is nothing. So now you're going to do what you usually wouldn't do. If most of the times, he says, people have friends that are their realtors. You develop a relationship with your realtor and it's scary
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's difficult and it's hard to drop that realtor and go for another realtor when maybe that was what was supposed to happen in the first place. So that way you could get exactly what you needed out of the situation.
Right.
You have to sometimes do these really uncomfortable things that you wouldn't normally do, that's out of your realm of personality, that's out of your realm of state of mind and thinking and being. He says to be able to create a new structure of being.
Yeah. Now, people, you say they know themselves, and definitely on a superficial level, yeah, like chocolate, like cheesecake. But can we learn to understand or to seek our self knowledge on a deeper level by like automatic writing, for example, writing everything that we truly know about ourselves and listen to our intuition, listen to our heart, and just let it flow so you can sort of peek into all the little dark crevices and corners.
This is the part that's forever flowing. This is the
Yeah.
part that's forever growing, he
Right.
says.
Yeah.
He's saying, 95 is too young to pass away. Like you think 95 is old. You think at 95, you know who you are and you know everything. At 95, you had a lot of experience. You've seen a lot. You know a lot because you experienced these things,
Yeah.
because you learned how to get unstuck. And through your life and through your cycles, you've created all these new energetic patterns for yourself. Some people don't, though. He says some people
Yeah.
don't. Some people don't. And then that's how they die in misery.
Oh. I
That's
think
how they
one of the
die.
biggest phases in life is to come to the epiphany that I don't give a flying rat's ass what other people think about me. I think that's a real big unsticker for a lot of would be for a lot of people. Just fuck it. Who cares what the neighbors think about your wardrobe or whatever?
He's agreeing with you. He's saying that's right. He says,
Okay.
preach it. You're
I'll get on my soapbox. Yeah. Well, once you get to be 50 or so, it's like, who cares? Really?
But that's what his point and what he was just saying lastly about how even 95 is too young, because like
Yeah.
he's saying you go through all these fucking different phases in your life.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't repeat him directly. So he's like, you left this word out. And I'm like, okay, sorry. He's saying ever live in fucking life. So, okay, there we go. Made it
Okay.
now. And he's saying you go through it all, and you go through these phases. Sometimes you're forced to repeat these phases in your own lifetime cycle. Like again with relationships,
Right.
because it's you haven't overcome the plan
Yeah.
in this lifetime. You haven't overcome the drama. You haven't learned the lesson from it, and that's where people get stuck in their heads and stuck in their wheelchairs and stuck
Yeah.
in physical, literally stuck in their physical beings
Yeah.
through their health because of unevolved issues. And then there's other things too. I mean, it's not like everybody has health issues just because they're traumatized over something. Sometimes
Right.
it's literal lifetime. In this lifetime, you're supposed to experience this, and it's preordained and it's pre-planned for your soul involvement. It's not that you're deserving of that. However, there are circumstances that are not that are the opposite, which is, he says, you're not getting unstuck. You're
Right.
not thinking through your process because thinking hurts, because doing something different is uncomfortable, because it's fearful for you, because you don't know how to navigate that. And that's the thought process you need to be able to create the unstuckness in yourself. This
Okay.
is believe it. This is believe it and you will achieve it.
I like that. And it rhymes. Believe it and you will achieve it. But you do
He
have
gets
to
very
believe
he
it
gets
with
very poetic
everything.
sometimes. Did you notice that?
What?
Did
Oh,
you notice
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
during summer sessions he gets so poetic, it just makes you laugh.
Oh, there. Fancy.
He's like He's like, shut up. He's like, I'm a fucking musician.
That's right. He's a creative. All right. So anything else you want to share about the whole topic, Erik?
He's saying that you will achieve success if you want to believe in the successful. And everyone can achieve a successful. It's a matter of seeing where you're stuck and honoring your own state of mind in that moment and recognizing. So
Yeah,
it's not just about becoming unstuck, it's about recognizing when you are stuck and what that looks like.
exactly.
And then as every generation of your life pieces prevails, there's going to be other situations that arise that you do get stuck.
Yeah.
Again, that's a cycle that doesn't disappear. That's part of humanity. That's part of our life. That's part of being a human, is learning that. And then when you get up there, he says, they sit you down on this, at this magic table, and they pull out this big blueprint formula of all these times you've been stuck. And they show
Whoa.
you the way that you did it. And it's not about like, oh no, you didn't do it the right way. You could have done
Yeah.
it this way. It would have come
Right.
out better.
Right.
It's not about that. He says it's really about like, okay, well, this is how it went. And like, what did we learn from that?
Yeah.
What did we see from that? Okay, well, let's rehash that again, he says, and let's replay that again, and let's see what comes out different. Maybe it'll come out worse. Maybe it'll come out better. He says they have instant replay up in heaven. You can
Yeah.
do an replay of scenes and re-experience it. And I didn't know this. This is cool.
High
You can,
tech.
did
Oh,
you ever
and
hear?
see different, if you had done this choice instead, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The aquarium people are here, so it's going to be noisy in a minute, but we're almost
Okay.
finished.
Showing me hitting like rewind on like an old VCR. You can rewind certain parts and you
Oh,
can
cool.
play it. And it's not to judge you. It's to
No.
be a re-experience the experience, because like let's say he says that it did come out great. It came out grand. He says, but maybe you just want to see what would have happened if you didn't break up with her, or you did break up with her, or he says, or she gave you a shot or didn't give you a shot. He's always bringing up girls. uh, he's saying, how did you make that math teacher feel when they were doing all they could to explain something to you, and you are literally breaking your pencil in half and totally ignoring them in junior high?
Yeah.
He's like, you get to replay out like these certain scenarios, because it's not just about you, it's about how you affect everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I want to hit replay on. So
Me too, right now. Hey, can you tell me a time where, when you're in your life review, that they showed you a time that you were stuck, Erik? And then I might have to mute because the dog's going to go crazy, but it's okay. It's life. It's too nasty outside to let him out.
there were two moments in particular. One of them, he was sitting in his truck and he had his keys in his hand, and he was on some kind of autopilot thing in his mind because he was very upset. And it's almost like I'm feeling this feeling of like
Okay.
manicness, like he's going to make a decision that is what's the word, and very, very impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so I believe it involves something that he was going to sell, right?
Okay.
So it was okay, it was like a gun or something that he was going to sell or trade in or something, but it was impulsive. It was a reaction, it was a
Right.
reactive mechanism. So that was a moment where he played that out, he says, probably 30 trillion times,
Mm.
as part of his growth pattern of feeling better about the moment, feeling better about the whole scenario, because he wished it went a different way for him. And he
Yeah.
understands that, like he was able to forgive himself
Yeah.
because he replayed it and replayed it and replayed it again, and was able to relive it out in a different way. So that created different
Yeah. Okay.
frequencies for himself, so he could forgive himself.
Cool. What's the other one? Oh, God. I'm
The
going to
one's
mute you while y'all talk.
okay. The other one's pretty sad, but it's true. He is saying that he had just gotten out of the hospital after he had overdosed, and he was somebody's like diagnosed him as clinically depressed or something, and there's all these clinical like this and that and medications and this and that. And it was like he was just he says it was just over the top. It felt really over the top. And it felt like this is not me. This is not like this is not who I am. So it was very like he goes back to that moment, like when he in his life review and part of his processing of overcoming that situation, he goes back to that moment and those thoughts of coming home from the hospital, pacing, just like looking at himself and the thoughts he was having, his self-talk. And he needed to forgive himself for the self-talk he was having with himself and his own he just had a lot of just self reflection that was just like super negative. He felt a lot of guilt. He felt a lot of shame. He felt very sad, very sad. He was grieving. He felt embarrassed, but mostly he said he is saying was like, I just don't want to be here. Like I just don't want to. How do I tell people that? Like you can't just say to your mother, like, I don't want to be here, and he says, I wish I did. He says, I wish I did. Would have changed something? He's like, I don't know. I will no. He does know that wouldn't have changed something. But he played that out a lot because he wanted to know what he could have done to fix it, because he felt so bad about the way that he did end up ultimately committing suicide. And he felt so awful about how everybody felt. And there were moments that he was so enraged, really, about like hurting people, because he's such a big heart. He didn't want to hurt people. That's what killed him, like in his heart, was just how much he was hurting people. It wasn't even about him. It was like, I'm hurting everybody. I'm hurting, but like he couldn't help it. It was like this like compulsive behavior, So he says, I played this scene out over and over from when I got home from the hospital, and the self-talk and the negativity and the guilt and everything, because I needed to find a different way to like let it go and be able to let myself allow that moment in my life review to let go. He says, I was stuck.
Wow,
I
that's
was stuck.
fascinating. Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's amazing. And I think also I would like to, during one session, really, well, maybe with the sacred geometry session, we've got a bunch of questions on that, to really get into the whole 369 manifestation thing and why those numbers are important, how they actually work. We won't do that now, but it's just a magical number, magical sequence.
That's
All
so
right.
weird, because I don't like threes and I don't like nines because I don't like negative numbers. So I'm curious too what
And you
all of
mean
the
odd numbers?
even yes, sorry, odd numbers. I like odd numbers. I like positive numbers. Like
Okay.
16.
I
I
do
like 16.
too. Like on the volume on the TV, I can't, no, not 17. No, it has to be 18 or 16. Mm-mm. It's weird.
2, 4, 6, 8.
OCD. We appreciate. All right. We appreciate Abby and we appreciate Eric. You guys be sure you just subscribe. You don't want to miss the Sacred Geometry 369 manifestation one that we will eventually do. And you want to, well, you can like the channel. I don't care if you do.
I can't wait to
I
learn
don't
what
give
this
a Ryan,
is.
Flying Rats ask what you think about. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, I love you all. Love you, Eric. Love you, Abby. And y'all be sure you see on the screen how to get in touch with Abby. Of course, it will be in the description box as well. Love you all.
This
Bye.
is Emma. Bye-bye. Bye,
Bye.
Lisa.
It's great.